She was rich, beautiful, and heartbroken. After being betrayed by the man she almost married, Zara decided to find love her own way by inviting 12 men to a private mansion and testing them through brutal honesty, secrets, and dangerous games. But what began as a search for a husband quickly turned into a psychological war. Because some of these men had hidden agendas, and one of them was ready to destroy her life from the inside. Will she find true love, or will this twisted game cost her everything? It began with a single post. No filters, no tags, no hashtags, just a black screen with white words. I'm hosting a private retreat for eligible bachelors. The winner will walk away with my heart and $1 million. People thought it was a joke, but by morning, the name Zara Hayes was trending across social media. Zara wasn't just any woman. She was the 27-year-old heiress of a defunct tech empire. Her father, once one of Silicon Valley's most influential billionaires, had passed away mysteriously 5 years ago, leaving behind only one daughter, one estate, and one legacy mystery. After vanishing from the public eye for nearly half a decade, Zara returned and dropped a bombshell. She was looking for love, but not just any love. She was looking for a man willing to risk everything to win her heart. And she wasn't making it easy. 10 handpicked men from around the U.S. were sent discreet invitations. No details, just a date, a location, and a waiver with pages of fine print. Most would have thrown it away. But curiosity and the $1 million promise worked like magic. All 10 showed up. The destination? An isolated private estate in Northern California, surrounded by towering redwoods and stone gates with biometric locks. No phones. No internet. Just cameras, one another, and Zara. The only rule: play fair or leave. But the definition of fair was never made clear. The men were welcomed by a voice, not a person. It echoed from mounted speakers as they entered the grand marble foyer. "Welcome, gentlemen," the voice said. "This is not a dating show. This is not a game for fame. It's a challenge of loyalty, trust, and truth. Some of you are here for the money. Some of you are here for me. But by the end, only one of you will leave with both." They exchanged uneasy glances. Then came the twist. You will be tested physically, emotionally, and psychologically. You may leave at any time, but if you stay, prepare to be watched and judged. A thick silence followed. Zara still hadn't appeared. The estate was massive, an old mansion refurbished with modern tech. Each contestant was given their own room, and cameras were visible in every hallway. That first night, no one slept much. They were all strangers with one thing in common: they didn't know what they had signed up for. At sunrise, a chime rang through the house. The voice returned. "Morning challenge, the truth table. You each have 10 minutes to answer a question. Lie, and the lights will tell us." They were led into a sleek glass room with a polygraph machine. Each man sat down, one by one. "Why are you really here?" Some said love. Some said money. One man, Chris, a 31-year-old firefighter, said, "Honestly, I want something real. I've seen death up close. Life's too short to play games." He passed. Another, Jackson, a flashy entrepreneur, smirked and said, "The million is nice. But Zara's even better." The machine blinked red. Liar. The men started to realize they were being sorted. That evening, Zara finally appeared. She walked into the main hall in a crimson gown, no makeup, barefoot. The room went dead silent. "I see you've all met my home," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Now it's time you meet me." She walked past each man slowly, scanning their faces. "I'm not looking for perfection," she said. "I'm looking for honesty, vulnerability, and someone who knows that love, real love, isn't safe. It's brave." Then she turned. "3 of you failed today's challenge. You lied. And I can't build a future with a lie." She looked at the camera. "Remove them." Security guards escorted the 3 out before they could speak. No one knew where they were taken. No one asked. Zara smiled faintly. Let the real challenge begin. By the second night, the remaining 7 men started whispering. What was this really? Was Zara playing mind games? Or was she seriously trying to find a partner? Either way, it was working. They were hooked. But only Zara knew how far she was willing to push to find the man she truly deserved. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Rain slapped against the tall windows of the estate as lightning lit the sky in fractured bursts. Inside, the 7 remaining men sat in the drawing room, mostly silent, each sipping from a glass of whatever they hoped would calm their nerves. No one talked about the 3 men who were removed the night before. No one even mentioned their names. It was as if they never existed. Only Chris, the firefighter, looked uneasy. Not about the game, but about something else. Something he had noticed when Zara passed him in the hallway earlier that day. Her eyes weren't just calculating. They were haunted. "Anyone else getting the feeling this isn't about love anymore?" asked Reed, a 28-year-old marine biologist with a sarcastic streak. Julian, the charming school teacher from New York, shrugged. "She wants to see who cracks. Who's willing to stay when things get real." Darren, a personal trainer who hadn't stopped flexing since arrival, scoffed. "It's just strategy. She's testing our endurance." But Chris didn't speak. He had already made up his mind. While the others played chess and poker, Chris slipped away quietly and made his way down a narrow hallway lit only by wall sconces. His destination? The East Wing Library, a room Zara had warned them was off-limits for now, which to Chris meant there's something in there worth hiding. The library door wasn't locked. The room was huge, 2 stories, spiral staircase, towering shelves, and dust-covered chandeliers. Dozens of old books, oil paintings, and framed news articles lined the walls. But it wasn't the books that caught Chris's attention. It was a small cabinet built into the stone fireplace. The wood looked newer than the rest of the room. He pried it open gently and found a leather folder inside. Inside the folder were photos, documents, and letters. Chris sat on the floor and flipped through them. What he saw changed everything. There were surveillance photos of each man in the house, long before they ever arrived. Some taken months ago, some years. One photo showed Chris himself, standing outside his fire station last fall. Zara had known them all before the game started. This wasn't a random search for love. This was a setup. Chris heard footsteps and froze. He slid the folder back inside, closed the cabinet, and ducked behind a bookshelf just before a figure stepped in. It was Zara. She stood in the doorway for a moment barefoot, wearing a silk robe. "I told you this room was off limits," she said quietly. Not angry, just disappointed. Chris stepped out, slow and cautious. "I needed answers." She looked at him, really looked at him. Not with rage, but with sadness. "I'm not doing this to hurt anyone," she said. "I need to know who I can trust. Because the last man I trusted tried to kill me." Chris flinched. "What?" Zara walked to the fireplace and pulled the folder out. She didn't stop him. She opened it again and pointed to a photo, a man with dark eyes and a cold smile. "My ex-fiance. He worked for my father's company, gained my trust, nearly inherited half the empire before I found out he'd been sabotaging our security infrastructure." Chris listened, unsure if this was another test or the truth. "He left me for dead in a car accident," she continued. "But I survived. And I went off-grid for 5 years to plan this." Chris stepped closer. "You built this game because you were afraid to love again?" Zara shook her head. "Because I needed to learn how to trust again." The next morning, Zara appeared at breakfast and made an announcement. "One of you entered the library last night." Murmurs filled the room. She raised a hand. "He didn't break the rules. Because I never said there would be consequences. In fact," she turned her eyes to Chris, "he did exactly what I wanted someone to do." Chris stared, unsure whether he'd just been promoted or exposed. Then Zara smiled. "Which is why he'll be the first to join me on a private outing. The rest of you will stay here and complete today's challenge without him." Chris followed Zara into a vintage black Jeep, and they drove into the woods surrounding the estate. She took him to a quiet lake with a dock and a wooden canoe. They spent the afternoon paddling in silence, the water reflecting the sky, the wind quiet and heavy. Finally, Zara said, "I wanted to disappear after what happened, but if I had, he would have won. And I still believe in love, even if it scares me." Chris didn't push her. Instead, he said, "You don't need to find a man who's not afraid to lose you. You need a man who's terrified of hurting you." Zara looked at him, a little surprised, a little softened. Maybe. This wasn't a game anymore. Back at the estate, things weren't so peaceful. Julian found a camera hidden in the shower. Reed accused Darren of spying. And someone, no one knew who, scratched a message into the dining room table. "We're not contestants. We're suspects." By the third day, the mansion felt different. What once felt like a luxurious retreat now felt like a pressure cooker. The walls seemed to close in tighter. The cameras felt more invasive. And the men, what remained of them, were no longer allies, but suspects. Only 6 remained. Chris returned from his private outing with Zara with a calmness the others noticed and didn't like. He didn't brag. He didn't boast. He just kept to himself. That made them suspicious. Reed was the first to snap. "Why him?" he asked over breakfast, his tone sharper than usual. "Why not any of us?" Chris looked up slowly. "I didn't ask for it." "Right," Reed said, laughing bitterly. "You just conveniently got picked after you snuck into a restricted part of the house." Chris didn't respond. He wasn't about to explain everything he had learned, not yet. Trust had become currency here, and no one had earned it. Zara watched them silently from the staircase. She said nothing, but she noticed it all. The distrust, the tension, the cracks forming. It was working. But deep down, it terrified her. Because while the men were unraveling, so was she. That day's challenge was titled Past Lives. Each man was handed a sealed folder with their name on it. Inside were profiles, compiled by Zara's private team. Every lie they'd ever told, every debt, every girlfriend, every job they faked, every time they hurt someone and never apologized. The challenge: read it out loud. One by one, they stood in the courtyard and revealed their pasts. No edits. No filters. Just raw truth. Julian confessed to cheating in college and ghosting a woman he almost proposed to. Reed admitted to cutting his brother out of his life over money. Darren revealed he'd never actually been certified as a personal trainer. He built his brand on social media, using fake before and after photos. "People believed it," he said. "So I leaned into it." Each confession chipped away the polish. It was no longer about charm. It was about who was willing to be real. When it was Chris's turn, he stood silently for a moment, then said, "I lied once about loving someone when I didn't. I told her I was ready, but I wasn't. She deserved honesty, and I gave her fear disguised as love." He closed the folder. "I won't do that again." Zara watched him longer than the others. That night, the house changed again. The power went out. Only emergency lights remained, red, dim, and flickering. And on the dining room wall, written in what looked like black marker, was a new message. "She's not here to find love. She's here to punish men." Panic set in. Who wrote it? When? Why? Some accused each other. Others said it must have been Zara. But when she confronted them in the dim-lit hall with a flashlight in hand, she didn't look angry. She looked afraid. "I didn't write it," she said, voice steady. "And if anyone feels unsafe, you're free to leave. But those who stay should prepare for the truth." No one left. Later that night, Reed cornered Chris in the kitchen. "You know more than you're saying," Reed said. Chris didn't deny it. "I know enough to stay quiet." Reed wasn't satisfied. "Then maybe you're a part of it." Before things could escalate, the hallway screen turned on. It showed a live feed of Reed's room. He was in it, talking to someone on the phone. The audio played clearly. "I'll get her to trust me. Then we take what we need and get out. I just need a little more time." The room went silent. Reed looked like he'd seen a ghost. That's not what it sounds like." Zara appeared on the screen. Her voice echoed. "It's exactly what it sounds like." Reed was removed that night. No one protested. The next morning, Zara held a candlelit breakfast for the remaining 5. "This isn't about games anymore," she said. "It never really was. I created this to see through people, to know who hides behind charm and who hides behind silence." She turned to Chris. "But now I'm beginning to realize something." She stood up and walked to the window, the morning light washing her in gold. "I'm not the only one with trust issues. Some of you came here already broken, and some of you might never be able to love without control." The room held its breath. She turned, tears quietly forming. "I'm terrified of giving my heart to someone again. But if I don't, I'll be trapped in my own walls forever." Julian stood. Then maybe we need to earn it, not win it. Zara nodded, and for the first time, smiled genuinely. But the peace didn't last. That afternoon, Darren was found unconscious in the pool house. No blood. No signs of a struggle. Just a shattered glass nearby and the unmistakable smell of chloroform on a rag beside him. He was breathing, but barely. Zara ordered medical staff to remove him from the property immediately. Only 4 men remained. And for the first time, Zara asked herself a terrifying question. Did someone enter this game pretending to love her, but really planning to destroy her? 4 men remain. Chris, the quiet firefighter who had won Zara's early trust. Julian, the charming school teacher with a wounded past. Nathan, the smooth-talking entrepreneur no one fully believed. And Logan, the shy software engineer who had mostly stayed out of the drama. The estate was no longer a romantic setting. It had become a battleground of silence and stares. And Zara could feel it. The game was spiraling beyond her control. That morning, she called a meeting in the ballroom. The air was heavy, the chandeliers dim, the long velvet curtains half drawn. I created this experiment, she began, standing at the head of the room, to find the man who could break through my fear of love. But I forgot one thing. She paused. That fear doesn't just live in me. It lives in all of you. The men shifted in their seats. I wanted to test you. But now I see, you've all been testing me too. Chris stepped forward. Zara, you deserve honesty. So I'll say this. I didn't come here thinking I'd fall for you. But somewhere between your pain and your strength, I did. Zara looked at him, almost startled. Julian added, and I came thinking I'd charm my way to the end. But now, I just want to know you without the cameras and the fear. Logan said nothing, but the way he looked at her, with quiet understanding, was powerful enough. Then came Nathan. I have something to confess, he said. I knew about this show before I was invited. Everyone turned. My cousin works for one of your security firms. He told me about your plan before you even sent invites. I studied every past case you were involved in, every relationship. I came here, not for love, but for leverage. Zara's breath caught in her throat. You're lying, Chris growled. But Nathan pulled a small recorder from his pocket. Not lying, just prepared. He pressed play. Zara's own voice echoed from the tiny speaker. If any of them find out what really happened that night, I'm done. Zara went pale. It was from a private recording, one she never remembered being made. Chris lunged forward, but Zara stopped him with one look. She turned to Nathan, her voice low. What do you want? Nathan smiled. To own a piece of your company. A quiet share. In exchange, I disappear. No media. No scandal. No more danger. The room was dead silent. Zara stared at him, then walked toward him and slapped him hard. You think you're the first man to try and trap me? She said, her voice shaking. I built this empire after dragging myself out of a hospital bed. I trained to fight. I studied contracts. I buried the version of me who cried over betrayal. Nathan looked stunned. I invited men here hoping one of them might see the woman I've become. Not the heiress. Not the headlines. Me. She turned to the others. I won't let this game destroy who I am. Security removed Nathan instantly. Later that night, the final 3 were invited to a candlelit dinner in the courtyard. No cameras. No games. Just them, a fire pit, and honesty. Zara looked at each of them. Chris, Julian, Logan. You've all shown me different versions of strength, but I can't choose all of you. Tears shimmered in her eyes. So tonight, I'll choose one. She stood in front of Logan. You are kind, gentle, and loyal. But I think you're still discovering who you are. I hope one day you find the woman who walks that path with you. Logan nodded quietly. There was no bitterness in his goodbye, just a gentle, sad smile. Then she turned to Julian. You remind me of who I used to be, charming, hiding pain behind laughter. You deserve love, but right now, I don't know if we'd be building something. Or healing from something. Julian lowered his head. Fair enough. He kissed her hand before walking away. Only Chris remained. He didn't speak. He just looked at her. And for the first time, she let herself be seen completely. I didn't know I could trust anyone again, she whispered. But you never asked me to. You just showed up. Again and again. No masks. Chris stepped closer. I'm not here to fix you, Zara. I just want to walk beside you. Through whatever comes next. She smiled, then laughed softly through tears. Then take my hand, she said, and never let go. 6 months later, Zara and Chris sat on a park bench in New York City. No cameras. No guards. Just 2 coffee cups and the world moving around them. You ever miss the mansion? He asked with a smirk. Only the wine fridge, she joked. They sat in silence for a while. Then she said, I still don't know how to trust perfectly. Chris squeezed her hand. Then we'll be imperfect together. And for once, the girl who created a dangerous game finally felt safe. If you enjoyed this emotional and suspenseful journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel Color Off Stories for more powerful storytelling like this. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a new episode.